Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
we can hear you.
Crap, I got it to work.
I just thought you were maybe stunned by my very high-tech headphone podcasting gear.
A little bit. It's impressive. Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Hello.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
You're cut off.
Yes.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate the invite. Thank you.
I was laughing back at your email that you sent yesterday. You're like, Joanne's a pretty one.
Oh, aren't we adorable?
You are. We can talk about it obviously when we're recording, but your podcast and like that first episode was just wow.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm hoping I can I'll get some carryover from families who follow our page, but I'm hoping I can reach a lot of cops and have one more shot to tell them our story, you know.
Hello and welcome to Table for Five with no reservations. Take a seat at the table for a fresh, sweet, salty, tart, and pleasantly bitter conversation.
Hello, and thank you for taking a seat at the table. We have a special episode today. We are excited. We have some special guests. Joining me at the table today is Jamie Ramos.
Hello.
Tabitha Cabrera.
Hello.
Kim McIsaac.
Hi.
Rachel Flanagan.
Hey, everybody.
I'm Jennifer Dunn. And joining us today is Jerry and Joanne Turning. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the invitation. It was really sweet of you. We're looking forward to chatting.
We're big fans. So can you two introduce yourselves and tell us a little about you?
I go first. Hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Turning. I run a page called Bacon and Juiceboxes. I started that back in 2012, writing about our family and our little fireball named Eric, who's 19 years old on the spectrum. I'm a retired police officer. I retired 2 years ago, spent most of my career in K-9. And upon retirement, I created a business called Blue Bridge Autism Training that delivers autism response training to police and first responders around the world. This is my wife, Joanne.
I'm Joanne. We also have a almost 22-year-old daughter, Anna. She's the best big sister ever. She just recently graduated college. I have been working full time for my company for 33 years. So trying to balance motherhood and working and challenges of special needs has been quite interesting. We've met a lot of wonderful people along the way. I think the world has had some twists and turns in our road. And out of it, I'll just mention also that because of Eric and some posts and discussions on the Bacon and Juiceboxes page, we also started a nonprofit organization called Special Wants, a Bacon and Juiceboxes project that grants holiday wishes to special needs families. So definitely some wonderful opportunities, but things are never quiet or boring in our house.
Never dull.
No. And so your son, we can talk about it in a little bit, but Sesame Place. I want to talk about Sesame Place because I took my daughter there last year to the California one for the first time. So we can compare the two, but 22 and graduated college. Wow. She has got it together. I think at 22, I was still figuring out life. I think I already had gone to college 2 years, dropped out. Like, I don't know what I want to do. That's amazing.
We have to get her a job now. So if anybody's listening that's hiring, reach out to us because we got to get her out of the house. She now has to.
No, I want her to stay home forever. So we disagree on that.
What's her profession? What did she graduate in?
She has a degree in digital media and entrepreneurship with a minor in social media marketing. So
oh my goodness!
Live TV production someday, and she actually runs podcasts and things of that sort and does audio. So she has all sorts of technical training. And this generation, like social media and just working with computers is, the way of life now. So
and let's be clear, I'm not this generation. I was stumbling, copying, pasting the link to you for the podcast tonight. So I may be in need of her services.
We're actually ready as a podcast. We just had a meeting and we're ready to offer her a free position where she can smile with us in the evening and then help us manage. That's great. What's your son's name? They sound perfect.
Hey,
it won't help her get out of the house.
To stay home.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
So this is
really.
Yeah. You're welcome.
You're welcome, Joanne.
You can put it on her resume, and she can also still live with you.
She'll be like, great.
That's fabulous. Can you tell us about Eric? I believe you said he was diagnosed at 2.5, which is around the time my daughter was diagnosed.
Yeah, he was diagnosed at 2.5. It's been a wild trip. He's a ball of fire, always moving. He is verbal. Expressive language is a hurdle for him. So that's what we're trying to focus on now. Being more conversational, being more expressive with his language. He is verbal. He can express a lot of needs and wants and demands. He's a ball of fire, keeps us running. And as you mentioned, Sesame Place is his thing. And we are there practically every day they're open.
I was going to say, they must know you guys.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's
He's
ridiculous.
like the mayor of the place.
Yeah. Well, we don't mention the one on the West Coast because we don't want him to know it exists.
We're afraid if we visit once, it's gonna have to be like we're gonna need like a shuttle across the country every weekend.
So I think it's significantly smaller and doesn't offer nearly what yours does. So really, why bother?
Well, if you're up for it, I have a story. I actually lost Eric at the park in San Diego.
That now is Sesame Place because it was a water park before and it was part of the Busch Gardens parks.
Yep.
And so we visited, I don't know how many years ago.
About 8. Yeah.
I see it was the age 8 again.
Yeah. And I lost him at that water park there. And it's a weird kind of twist of irony that now I just did training for the entire security staff of Sesame Place San Diego. And I had to tell the story. I lost my son for 15 minutes in your water park here.
Terrifying.
One of the worst days of my life. Yeah. And it's now that story is a cornerstone of my training now when I talk to cops. It's just a weird kind of way that the universe comes full circle.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's kept us on our toes. I think, as I mentioned, the younger years were really hard. We probably had about 6 years where we virtually didn't sleep. Did I say it? I said
we don't even say it out. We don't say that out loud. We don't say the word sleep out loud
because I feel like we're finally in a good.
And then if you say
don't say that. Don't finish that. Don't finish that.
Do it again. Yeah. Anyway, it was. I don't know how we survived that time period. I do know how, because I feel like we have good family support system, and especially Jerry's parents are very young, and I don't know, God knew what he was doing by putting them in our lives as like the best grandparents to help in these moments of need, because they would just see that we had like night after night after night of no sleep, and then they would take him for 1 night or 2 nights and have him sleep at their house, even though they knew they weren't going to sleep, and it was just those, even still, like most Fridays, he sleeps at their house. And I hate that I say it, but I like look forward to that one night where we just don't have to chase him around the house. I don't have to go clean the bathroom. I don't have to go, up and down, getting him 8 million drinks and things to eat. And, it's exhausting. So I don't
think you need to feel bad for saying that.
I know. I do still feel guilty about it though. It's mom guilt. Mom guilt.
Yeah.
Keep it up, Jerry. Keep telling her.
Yeah. But those years between 6 and 12 were rough. And, we had doctors actually saying, I don't know what to tell you except for take turns, go to a hotel and give each other a night's sleep. And it was rough, but we got through it. And now
my daughter still doesn't sleep and she's 27. So
yeah, I hear that all the time.
It's hard.
I mean, luckily, like I can go to bed now. Like she'll be in her room and she's fine. Like I'm still able to sleep, thankfully, for like that part of it. But yeah, she still doesn't really, even when she sleeps, it's not anybody else's skill.
Exactly. It's not a restful time period where you're always sleeping with one ear open and just wanting to keep them safe, and make sure that they're not leaving the house or setting the house on fire. Our son likes to cook himself fried eggs on the stove. And it's like he uses the stove. So I'm like, I never relax when I hear that little click, 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 when the gas stove is igniting.
Mine just eats ice cream.
Yeah, human body needs sleep. It really wears on you when you don't get it, and it affects your whole world.
Yeah,
it really does. There's something about sleep deprivation, and I think it cycles, right? So, not saying, Joanne, that you're in a great spot right now, because we would not say that. However, it comes and goes, it ebbs and flows, right? So it's always tough. It's tough.
Jen's daughter is on a little sleep strike right now.
Yeah, since last November, completely days and nights are 100% turned around. So and then like you said, I do now. I mean, I think we all know that our homes, I think an autism home is probably safer than a prison, right? So there's every window, every door is alarmed and there's bells. but you still don't go into a deep, relaxed
No.
sleep.
No.
And again, every time an iPad dies, I have to get up and change it, water, snacks, through the whole night, right? So it's her daytime. So sometimes I'm cooking, dinner at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So anyway, I'm getting all over here, but so I feel you on the sleep. I feel you on the sleep.
Yes.
So you said that Eric is 19 now, and you guys are in New Jersey. So what was that like? He's an adult now. Right. So did you have to do the guardianship? How was the transition out of high school? What does he do all day?
We do have guardianship. That was surreal process. Just weird, not fun. We say that there should be a separate
category.
There should be a separate avenue for our families. And it was weird to be thrown into the same category as the rich elderly grandmother that the kids want to put her in her home and take the estate. And, I understand the process has to be adversarial, that they have to make sure that Eric's needs are looked out for. But it was just weird to have to
ask a court for permission to continue caring for our son that we've been caring for 18 years.
And some weird things happen. Like they appoint an attorney to represent him. It's his attorney, and have to ask us questions. So the attorney had to meet with him, and it was during COVID. So it was a Zoom meeting, and we were like, there is no way Eric's going to sit here and talk to you. He doesn't want any part of it. But we had to go through the steps and through the process. And we were lucky that attorney was he was cool. He understood. He actually had a
special needs brother.
He had a brother who on the spectrum. So he was very, very,
that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, like Eric was sitting kind of right behind us in the middle of like a Zoom meeting, and he'd be like, "Hey, Eric, do you want to hear a funny story?" And Eric was like, "No."
So on one hand, you're really angry that you have to go through that dehumanizing process, but he made it better. He was compassionate, and it could have been a lot worse. But it's a weird process to go through. To have some court tell you, yes, okay, you can continue being his parent.
And it's just also very complicated to figure out, because there's so much legal loopholes and steps, and you're just so afraid that you're going to do something wrong. There's no like step 1, do this, step 2, do that. You kind of just figure it out, and then you have a court date, and then you don't hear anything, and you're like, okay, because you don't have to appear in court. All of your paperwork is just presented to a judge, and so then you're waiting back like, well, did we get guardianship? Like what? And it's just very, very strange. And then this year going through Social Security
that's a whole new story. Yeah, that's a trip. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Just a nightmare. Yeah, Social Security is awful.
The U.S. government.
I mean, there's a lot that could be said about that, but we'll save that for another day.
Exactly. That could be a whole other podcast.
I mean, we should chat, Joanne.
Yes.
But yes, he is now ours. We have
Congratulations.
We get to keep him.
It's a boy.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
Yeah, we've had friends on the podcast who's actually they were required to appear with their child in court.
Right?
And
I said she was worried Jack was going to say no. That's
hard.
One of the questions that the attorney was asking Eric he's asking us about Eric was, is he able to take his own medicine on his own?
Yeah.
And I answered, yes, he is, because as long as it's structured and scheduled, he knows exactly what medication to take. But then I had to catch myself. I'm like, well, but wait a minute. That doesn't mean he knows why he needs the medication.
He doesn't know to refill it. He doesn't know.
So you're walking this tightrope. You don't want to say the wrong thing to make the attorney think that he is.
He can live on his own.
Yeah, we don't need guardianship. It was just a hard process.
So did he do the typical school education route and then
give the synopsis?
Yeah, go ahead.
So he started with early intervention, and then he went into public school, pre-K, and it was pretty much full day, which self-contained classroom, public school. So he was in our public school from K through 3. No, I lied. From pre-K to kindergarten. Then we actually pulled him out and put him into a private school that was actually more like an early learning center. And it was mixture of typical children and a few, because it was a very small school. There was like 8 children in the whole school. And So then he was there for like 3 years and they were like, okay, he's beyond like the age that we should really have him here. So then he went back into the public school and through 8th grade. And we had wonderful experience, especially in his middle school years. 6th, 7th, and 8th were like my favorite years. Teachers were wonderful. Staff was wonderful. Like we just were in a good place. And then he had to go to high school. And we are in a school district that has a regional high school. And not that there's anything quote unquote bad with it. I think as a parent, I was apprehensive because he was now going to be put into a school system with students that didn't know him, coming from different school districts. Whereas, yes, there would have been some from the, town that we live in that would have known him or been familiar, but then, 6 other towns that come in that don't know him. And it's just scary. Mm-hmm. So we went the route of going private. So it was considered public school, but a placement, to a private school through our public school district. And the first year was okay. And then COVID hit and it was very, very difficult. And I don't blame any schools having to figure out COVID and what a nightmare it was. But if a school could have done something wrong or made a bad decision, this school did it. And it was like so frustrating because, our kids need routine. They need like structure. And they would, be trying to figure out these rules. Like, was there an exposure? Does somebody have a thing? Or do we have to be closed for 12 Gs? Can you come back? Yeah. And so they would come send notices like you were out for 2 weeks. And then the next day, oh, you know what? We reread the rules and it wasn't in our classroom. So you could come back. I'm like, no, we already told him 2 weeks. Like he's not coming back. Yeah. So long story short, we ended up making the decision after sending him back for a little while during COVID for Jerry to homeschool him.
Yeah, I happened to retire around the same time. So we had this luxury of being able to do this. And so I actually ran out of reasons not to homeschool. I ran out of reasons to keep sending him to a school. And what we hung on the longest for socialization.
Yes.
But when I really looked myself in the eye and says, is he really getting socialization? He wasn't getting that at the school. So slowly but surely, the reasons to keep sending him to school started to tick away. And the last one was respite for me, and that wasn't enough anymore. I had the time. I have the ability to do this. I have been given a gift to retire early. So we bit the bullet and I started homeschooling him. And it's been fantastic.
I said he's done wonderfully. He's done wonderfully. I mean, like the progression he's made in actual learning and schoolwork.
Yeah, he's jumped several grades in math over the last year and a half. Reading comprehension, everything that I really needed to focus on. He kind of thrived, and there's this. It's just kind of just chill. He has fun. He races to the desk every morning. He beats me there to do schoolwork. He likes hanging out with me.
To do extra schoolwork throughout the day with dad. He just loves doing it.
Yeah, for him it was the right. I understand that it's not the right call for everybody. First, and the luxury we have of me being able to do it, it absolutely made sense. But I understand, not every family's in that position.
I think the anxiety also. School. Or the school day structure really caused a lot of anxiety for him.
Well, and it probably was the reason why he wasn't sleeping for so long is he was just always anxious. And when we started doing homeschooling, all of that kind of didn't go away.
No,
but it was severely, it was really impacted. He's a different kid, totally different kid.
I do understand that because my daughter has developed epilepsy and the neurologist that she sees at Children's, she hasn't had one since I pulled her from public ed. And he said, the chaos that these children walk into every day, he said, no one ever thinks about the lighting and the sounds, which he said the lighting in schools in general are triggering for anybody, but for children with epilepsy, it's even more. It triggers their epilepsy. And he just said, all of this around, he said, will often do that. And then she's not had one since I took her out of school. So it's interesting, right?
It really is. And what was I going to say? For Eric, what he wants to get done, he'll do whatever you want him to do. He'll give him the task, give him the rules, and let him do it. But when he's done, he wants to be done. So it was really hard for him to do learn a subject, do a math sheet or whatever, and then wait for the other kids, and then or take a break and then come back. He just wants to go.
Downtime was torturous and it just created so much anxiety.
Yeah. So I have the ability now. We sit down, we do our schoolwork. We're done in an hour and a half, and then we can go about our day. And fits his personality much, much better.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And now he's going to a program, a work program. He starts his internship Wednesday. Wednesday.
His first job.
You got his
That's
first job.
awesome. Yeah.
That's amazing. Look at someone's going to work out of your 2 kids. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
It'll be
That's
fine.
my
Joanne.
daughter is like, if he gets a job before me.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. What is he going to be doing?
He'll be working at a local, like a small batch
Ice cream parlor?
And they'll
Yeah, we got to
be,
get him to keep his fingers out of the
I
product.
so they'll be part of the job training, but they do get to have some ice cream at the end of their shift. So we'll see. This is the first try, with the program that he's going through. But
I love that.
I think the program where he is now, and he only goes 2 days a week, but we've done that also for that socialization piece, like and job training. Like there was only so much. It wasn't like dad could take him to Wegmans and say, can I be your job coach and take you to, a food store and help you kind of learn your job skills. So we needed to find some place that can take them to that next step and hopefully lead towards some kind of semi-independence. So this place has been wonderful, and they see things in him that, again, makes me feel bad as a parent that I feel like maybe I never saw in him, or I never felt like he was fully capable, and I had to like wrap him in bubble wrap, and protect him from certain experiences. And so I said to the woman, his BCBA, I was like, I just have to thank you. Like, you're helping me see more potential in him than I even knew was there. So fingers crossed.
Our kids love to prove us wrong to other people.
Yeah.
So happy for them to do that. Absolutely. Yes. I'm like, prove me wrong every day. I don't mind that at all.
And it's interesting. These professionals, they seem, I guess, braver is the right word. They're willing to take chances that I don't think comes as easy to a parent. So you need somebody else to say, no, we'll nudge him. He'll be okay. It'll be all right. We really needed that, especially at this point.
I always think when I like have those feelings about myself, I'm like, man, I should have, and I'm getting better at that, like given a chance, but then like we talked about earlier, like you're working on 2 hours of sleep for like 3 days. You have safety locks all over your house. You've seen the liquids dumped or the rocks in the mouth, like the trajectory of everything that you've watched over the time kind of presets you to be on the high alert, and these people come in like with their fresh spirits and
and with reserve of energy. I know.
Your fresh spirits.
They're like, let's give it a try.
They lack trauma. It's the trauma they don't have.
Yeah, it's true. No, but it's true, because when I was on the phone with her and I was taking notes to like relay everything to Jerry, I'm like, I almost felt like saying, like, are you talking about Eric?
Sorry, did you call the right number, ma'am?
Yeah, but little things that we even overlook, like they're teaching him how to answer the phone and fill out job applications and will you be available to work next week, and have him answer the question and have it be a true answer, and little kind of things that you as a parent, I never thought to teach him that skill. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
So that outside perspective, really, it's an eye-opening thing to have somebody
believe in your son.
Yeah, and be better at it than you, I guess,
Well, I think all kids are a little different. You know what I'm saying? They're always a little different for their parents. They're always a little bit. I mean, even typical kids, right? They're always a little bit more less self-reliant when we're around. And
that's true. And they'll mouth off to us and not others.
Yeah. And I think we get stuck on how vulnerable our children are, thinking of all the things that could like happen, and we just want to keep them safe and protect their hearts and their dignity and all these things. So I think sometimes you get that tunnel vision and that's the things you're seeing. And then you have this other person, all the emotions are taken out of it. So then there's a little clarity, I feel like, when that happens. And
one of my favorite comedians is Jay Moore. And he has this line that when your child is born, you want to nerf the world, right? And you just want everything to be safe. And that kind of puts you in a bubble, and it's not good for them. They need to be pushed a little bit. Yeah, it's really
that balance is hard, right? That balance is hard.
Yeah. It really is hard.
Sometimes it's even easier, I think, with the special needs kids than the typical kids in that sense, like my daughter's here every night. You know what I mean? Like the other kids are like driving and you're waiting for them to come home and
make good choices.
yes.
So we definitely want to ask you about your nonprofit before we forget, but also can you tell us, Bacon and Juiceboxes. Does he love Bacon and Juiceboxes? I mean, is that a given? Is that an obvious answer?
Yeah, when I came up with that name when I started the blog, and in that
Time
point in
period.
our time, he's a very, very, very picky eater,
Still.
and all
I've got one of those.
yeah, literally all he would eat is bacon and a very specific brand of juice box. And I was looking for something quirky, and it just, when I was picking the name, that was forefront in our lives of just trying to get this kid to eat something different. So it just made perfect sense for us at that time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Since
that's awesome.
then, his diet's expanded a lot. So it's not
We
really.
still cook bacon every morning.
he's still
at
a bacon
least once
fiend,
a day.
but yeah.
So
So it's fine. It's fine.
yes.
Right.
Well, I mean, who doesn't love bacon, right?
I was gonna say, I'm with him on that.
I'm like guilty on that one for sure.
Yeah.
So then that sort of, you started writing on there, and then it kind of went from there.
Yeah, at first it was just literally my own little cheap therapy.
Mhm.
I just had a lot going on in my head and I had to get it out. And
Can I interject for a moment?
sure,
He's an introvert.
I'm an
He
introvert.
will tell you he's an introvert. So it was very interesting for me too, because I'm like, you're gonna talk and tell all these people like you don't even know, like your innermost feelings, and you won't tell me, But that was his way to actually share. So there were so many things, probably still to this day, that I read first on Bacon and Juiceboxes, and that's how I see or feel what
Yeah.
he's feeling by him just writing about it. So that to me was like huge because it helped to open up that communication of things that he just wouldn't really just openly talk about. I'm a talker.
Yeah, it wasn't the healthiest of choices, but I had to share something and get it out. And rather than doing the healthy thing, like talk to my wife, I decided to start writing this stuff. And yeah, I guess
Tell thousands of people.
We write first to process, all 5 of us. So you're not alone in that.
my people, yes.
Welcome to the table. That's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we are.
he'll
And-
read what I write, and he's like, "Oh, I did," and I'm like, "I just write it better."
Well, and there's something very secure about that backspace key. If
I
I
told
wanted,
my
if I
husband,
were-
if we had a delete key without
Yeah.
a grudge, we could do this.
yeah, and when I want, and what we write about, all of us, is deeply personal stuff, and just, I don't know, it's just typing it and having the ability, that little safety net of either being able to delete the whole thing or just keep it in a draft for a while, or rephrase something. That's kind of my comfort zone, and that's kind of where I kind of fell in. And man, it kind of saved me, because I was struggling for a while emotionally with that. It really saved me being able to
And
have
then
that
just
outlet.
in general, connecting with other people,
Yeah.
like you guys, and saying your favorite phrase. Me too.
Yeah.
Once you started to hear, oh my goodness, there's somebody that understands what we're going on, you don't feel so alone.
Well, it's someone that you don't actually have to explain his love of
Yes.
bacon to,
Yes.
or
Yeah,
judge
that's
you for the
true.
fact that every day your kid eats bacon and juice boxes, right?
Yes.
Or the sleep thing. I think the 5 of us connected so
Instantly.
deeply in that way because
Yeah.
there wasn't always a but or this.
Yeah, but I love
drawn out-
I love her, but I love her. We don't have
Yeah,
to.
you don't have to
We don't
have to,
qualify
like-
it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's funny, I'm sure you guys have felt this too. I could go on my page right now and type something like, Eric just shaved the dog and rolled him around in flour, and now he's painting, and I'll have 10 people say, yeah, my son did that yesterday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
as strange as you can come up
Yes.
with, somebody else had that same experience.
Yeah. Like,
Me
yay.
too. Yeah.
Rachel, yeah.
I'll say 2012, you were really ahead of the game. I feel like now everybody's talking about it. There's so many blogs, there's so many autism pages, but 2012, I mean, you were definitely
Pioneer.
I'm an OG.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, when I started doing it, actually, Autism Daddy, I don't know if you
There you
guys
go.
know him or talked to him. He was really the only male, the only father I knew that was doing this. And he was practically a celebrity when I started. He's the one who actually said, wow, I can do this. There weren't as many pages and blogs as there are now. But I'm glad it caught on. I think it's extremely healthy. I think it can get you, and you got to be careful, the whole
Yeah.
social media thing, but it's extremely healthy when you learn to navigate it.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
all have a love-hate relationship
Helpful.
because you'll have those moments that somebody makes you want to feel like you want to shut down your page.
Oh yeah. I've been
Yeah.
there.
But
Mhm.
majority is just wonderful community support that you just feel grateful
Didn't know it's out
for
there.
that outlet. Exactly.
But you're right, it is an outlet and it is therapeutic. And a lot of things that I wasn't in a place when I started writing, I wasn't comfortable really talking about it sort of to everybody because it almost, I've said it many times, and you try to explain our life, you sound like you're exaggerating. Like, oh, come on. What do you mean she doesn't sleep?
Yes.
What do you mean she's a picky eater? Like it's, so being able to write it, there was sort of this relief that would, now looking back, maybe I need to tighten the filter a little early on, maybe a little too much sharing in the beginning,
it's interesting. I'm sure you've experienced this too. I go back and read the stuff I wrote early on, and I'm just not that person anymore. It's not that I regret anything I wrote. I've always been very, very, I'm honest, and I own it, and I don't regret it. But it's an expression of where I was in that moment, which I think is important. I think the chronicle of my journey through this is important. But when I read it, what I wrote in 2013, I'm like, I'm just not that guy anymore.
Yes.
I'm not there anymore. But I have to remind myself that there's a parent out there that is there.
Yes.
Like
It's
they
still
are,
there.
in that step of where I was back then. So I will never delete it.
Right.
But once in a while I'll get called out on it, and somebody will say, listen, that was kind of harsh the way you wrote that. And I got to say, yeah, you know what, it kind of was. But I'm not going to delete it. I think it's important that it stays out there, because this is a process that we all have to go through.
And I think that one of the things that's really important is we've always tried to express these are our feelings as parents, our journey as parents. It's nothing to do personally. I mean, it's obviously personal about our son, but sometimes we struggle with adults on the autism spectrum who will challenge how we're feeling or tell us that maybe we don't love our child enough because we feel like we're struggling in a certain point. Eric didn't get his driver's license or wasn't able to do typical milestones. It's an emotional journey because it's that, expected path that I thought I was going to be on. And again, totally my emotions.
And you're allowed to have them and express
wrong, or indifference. It's what I'm feeling in that moment. So to tell me that I can't express how I'm feeling, those are sometimes where like the social media part has been challenging to navigate, because I don't want to, if my son someday comes and tells me like, I hate that you wrote that about me, I would apologize to him. I would say like, this was a difficult time for mom. This was, but I don't think I've ever written something that I would not want him to see or read or feel, like, so that he could really understand what was in my heart, and that everything that we do is with the 150,000% best intention to help make his life easier and more productive. And
And I'll speak for myself. I've always tried to keep in mind that my page and what I write is about me. It's my process, my problems. I had to heal. I had to go through some learning. It really is, as silly as it might sound, our autism page isn't really about our son. We celebrate him. He's a big major component. He's a celebrity on it. But if you look through everything we've written, they're about our journey here as parents, trying to get through this, not really about his. And I think
that's the same as your book. Like your journey through.
I just want to say my book is not an autobiography. It is fiction.
But in reading in reading your summary, like you can just feel the processing happening. It's like in this, like I read recently that your books, the sort of arc of your story is that, the story, not your story, is that there's a dad that was trying to process, and, sort of in the end, he comes through and finds his way with his son. And I feel like we all have that in maybe not the chapters of that book or whatever, but we all grow so much alongside our kids because we're adjusting our heart while we adjust their sails, Yeah,
it's a beautiful way to put it. And I really think it's important that we allow ourselves that journey, because social media can hurt you, and you can go on social media and you see these pages where you think everybody has it all together and they have it all figured out, and what the hell is wrong with me that I'm struggling, and that'll get to you. And if you're not finding the pages that are real and keeping it real, and that this is a struggle, and I'm 17 years into this and I failed today. So,
Yeah.
but and I appreciate you bringing up the book. That book was a major part of that. Like, I wanted to tell a story of a flawed individual, a flawed dad, just trying to figure it out, and struggling, making poor choices. That it's fiction. And the first thing I had to do when I wrote that book is call my mom and say,
Yeah.
"Mom, listen to me. This is not me." Like, but the emotions
Yeah.
that I drew from with that character, with that protagonist, were mine. Like, I was there at a lot of places
Yeah.
that he was, but I had to spice it up a little bit for the fictional story part of it. But he's really an amalgam of all the dads I've heard through the years, dads I've contacted with, have relationships with, who really
Yeah.
struggled to process this thing. And I wanted
And
to
I
make
think whether you struggle or not, you're just, we all as writers or sharing or on a podcast or in your work privately, you're just trying to show somebody that you're in this process, that you're learning alongside, that you're growing, that we're needing these accommodations, and that we're maybe going to be different tomorrow, you know?
Well, I think the big issue is with social media and this in general is like there's a lot of people out there that we're just supposed to have come into the earth knowing everything, or we have a child and we're supposed to like know exactly what to do when they're diagnosed with a disability and how to act and what therapy to do. And we don't know. We're learning along with them. And so that's really great about how you guys write and how you own it. Like, this is our journey and our son is part of it, but it's us as a parent. And I think for me, the isolation in the beginning was killing me inside because I felt like no one else around me knew this life. And when I read people like yours or my friends here at the table, their stories, I'm like, oh my gosh, someone else felt like this. I had to find them on the internet and across state lines, but someone else feels this way. And so I think telling that in the book, telling that through your writing is so important because it helps other people. And who cares sometimes what other people have to say.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I read different blog pages of families who do have younger children on the spectrum, and I can think back to when we were going through age 6 and age 8 and age 10, I feel I resist the urge to go on and say like, oh, don't worry, this is going to happen, or oh, just wait, it's going to get better or worse or whatever, because
we didn't want to hear that.
That's what I said. It was really hard, to have that, because you just said it. Everybody's experience is going to be different, and what's going to maybe work for one family is not going to work for somebody else. So it's like, I never wanted to give somebody false hope or
promises,
make them think like, oh my God, it's doom and gloom for the next 7 years. Like, people really have to figure it out on their own. So I do, I have to say, like, I feel sometimes I resist commenting because I don't want it to come across as like giving that unsolicited advice, and feeling like I'm some super duper expert, which we are absolutely not, So
yeah, and there were a lot of times where I was not ready to hear things.
Absolutely.
And I would have reacted poorly if somebody had shared an unsolicited piece of advice that I wasn't ready to hear. You got to get there on your own.
Newspaper articles were mailed to us from family members of this one, and look at this story about autism. I'm like, great.
Oh, that's like Kaya's dad lives in California. We live here, and he will often, if I will say something about something, he'll like send a link, and I literally want to jump to the computer and do bad things. I'm like, don't send me your link. Oh my God, I live it every single day. And like things like, well, you just need to get in front of the aggression, like stuff like that for people that don't live it day to day.
I always go back to their well-meaning. They're trying to help. They're trying to see.
Okay, well, I'll call you next time then, and you can talk me off the ledge.
I think maybe it's the 17 years of grizzled, whatever, trying to come through the silver lining of it all. But I think we've all been there and gotten those, pieces of advice or things that you're like, okay, great, but not in my house,
Yeah.
I think one more people offers us melatonin. It's like, come on.
I feel like people lose sight of the fact that like autism really affects the family as a whole, like the whole family unit. It's not just about, the individual. Every person in the family, including the individual, our lives change, as parents, as individuals, I have 4 children. So there's 3 other children besides her. They don't have the same lives that they would have had, and it is what it is, you know what I mean? And you make the best of it, and then, all that stuff. But I feel like people just don't understand all of those layers and complications that kind of come with it. That's what I feel like people really lose sight of. And everybody has a right to be upset about certain things or be annoyed about certain things, or, we have a right to grieve the life we thought we would have, grieve the child we thought we would have. And people, there's so much shame in that. And I think that, the more people talk about it and normalize it, the less shameful people feel about it, because a lot of these emotions and thoughts are, they're normal. Everybody processes it differently, and everybody has different dynamics, and some people have 0 family support. I couldn't imagine
I know.
in a million years doing what we did with no family support. There's so many different situations that's going to really affect the way your outlook is, how quick you kind of come back up for air. And I just think all the judgment that people get, like, we judge ourselves harder than anyone's ever going to judge us. Like, so it's really, I think that part of it is really important. And, so many people, I'm sure you get the messages too. And it's just, they're like, you just said what I feel. Thank you so much for this. Like, it's you really just giving them that validation that it's okay. Like, whatever your process is, it's okay. Like, we obviously love our children to pieces. People just, I feel like, lose sight of the effect this has. It's like a spiral effect on everybody.
I think, and you said it very well, and I think that is the key, the expectation part. And you wouldn't be a human being, you wouldn't be a parent if you didn't have this vision of what your life was going to be the next 10, 20.
Just based on your own life too.
And when that is altered, I'm not saying this is a tragedy or this is, but when that vision, when that plan you had is altered, that will mess with you emotionally. Yeah. And it's okay to process that at whatever speed you need. And sometimes you're going great and you go a year, or you think, okay, I got this figured out now. And then something will happen out of the blue. You'll see some kid,
random. It could be some small random moment,
and all of that's okay. And it took me a long time to be there. Like it's all right. They're not going to wake up tomorrow and have.
I still have moments. I think he's more. Yeah,
I mean, my daughter's 27. You know what I mean? I feel like you're always going to. You're always going to. I feel like you bounce back a lot faster than in the beginning. Brought you to your knees in the beginning. Now it's like, you might have a day and then you kind of, you dust yourself off and you just keep moving. But I don't think it's ever like a grief is a lifelong process. Yeah. And grief is love. Grief is not. I feel like it gets so misconstrued. Like, grief is love. Like, you have this pain inside you because you hurt your child for their struggles, for their lost experiences. Yeah. And some of it's about what we lost out as a parent. And that's okay to admit. My child is nonverbal. She, will be home with us forever. And I see the other kids sometimes, it would just be this little thing. You see, they go out, they're going out for coffee together, they're getting in the car, they have and it's like she's left behind. And once in a while that will just hit me.
It hit me tonight because my daughter went out to dinner with her girlfriend. Yeah. And Eric was like, "Where's Anna going?" I'm like, "Oh, she's going out with her friend." I'm like, the second I said that, he's probably like, "Well, why don't I ever go out with my friends?" But he's never really expressed interest in even wanting to go out with friends. So it's like, I think he's fine, but in my head, I think he should want to go out with friends.
You want to talk about this now? Listen, this gets really deep. My wife is an extrovert, right? She's the social butterfly. So she already said, I'm an introvert. I could do a prison sentence
on a private island by himself. For
that's my husband too.
Fine.
Yeah. So on that level, I understand my son, and he has never expressed interest in having friends. He likes being around people, but
he's curious when there's people around.
The point is, I believe he is not missing out on pleasure by not going out with his friends. There's no pleasure that he's missing out on. I know that because I could take my friends or leave them.
Yes.
Like, I'll call you. I don't want to go have dinner. and when I do, it's work. I mean, I have a good time. I can enjoy myself, right? I can work a room. I could turn on the charm, but I'm going to have to go take a nap when I'm done.
Decompress, right? Afterwards,
And in that way, I understand where Eric is a lot. It's a lot easier for me than for my lovely bride here, because she thinks he's missing out on pleasure and he's deprived of these social encounters. And I try so hard to explain, listen, man, he's not missing out on pleasure.
Well, it's a
Yes, we have to
fine.
teach him these skills, right?
Well, but I
Yeah.
think on
Yeah.
top of that, it's also the sibling relationship, I think, is the one
Mhm.
that really gets me. And hopefully I won't cry, because that, like, just sibling dynamic between him
Mhm.
and Anna, like, again, I'm one of 4 kids. I had certain things, growing up with my siblings. And I just, you want to recreate those kinds of moments and relationships. And it's hard to not see. They have a wonderful relationship. She's wonderful with him. He could take it or leave it with her.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, go away, Anna, like, but he likes
Yeah.
being with her, and she takes him for ice cream and, whatever, but it's not as important
Yeah, it's
in his life.
they look at
you know?
things very differently. My daughter came home from college this year. I mean, she was only 30 minutes away, so she was at the house often. My daughter lost her mind. She did not want her back here. She did not want her stuff here. She did not, because now it was different. She was used to her, not, it has nothing to do with like
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
feelings. She loves her sister. It's not
Yeah.
personal, but
Yeah.
now you're messing up her routine. Now you're bringing stuff in the house that in her
Right.
mind don't belong here, including your body. And it was rough. I mean, she was screaming, crying. It went on for, it was probably like 7 or 8 days, but I mean, it felt like a lot longer than that. And she eventually adjusted back, but it's like,
Yeah.
and then my poor daughter, like,
Like
you
I
just
said,
feel terrible because
that's
she's,
why I said that's the hardest thing. Then seeing, like, Anna being,
Yeah, our feelings get hurt, or
where,
Well, and it's a
Yeah.
complicated layer. I think that's one of the things with autism is that it's a complicated layer of not knowing. There's a lot of time spent not knowing the exact. And so we do have this place where we put on our own feelings or thoughts or wonders,
Yeah.
because there's not a way to like ask specifically and get an answer to those type of dynamics. And our kids have their own individual personalities, I mean, like my 2 kids are both autistic, but they're night and day, complete opposites in personalities, period. Our son's very social. My daughter is like, take it or leave it. See you later, So maybe she's an introvert, maybe he's an extrovert, it's hard to tell really. You're just
Yeah.
kind of guessing in that sense. I do
Well,
that a lot too.
It's
Yeah.
really hard not to project.
Yes,
on-
project.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
I do a lot of it, especially when my son is also verbal, but like he is not expressive of a lot of things. And so like I just assume. And then sometimes he does express something. I'm like, oh, I was way wrong about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I always get long-winded on things, but I don't know how much you want to talk or touch on what you do for the training. Can you touch on your career? I want to know a little about the canine thing. I'm fascinated by the canine unit. You're a retired police officer. That is amazing. I think I know I've had my brushes, with them. The very first thing I'm like, my daughter's autistic. And it literally comes out of my mouth, like, just because her response isn't always going to be, it's usually not going to be appropriate. Sometimes she's not going to even give you the time of day. I don't know what she's going to say. Not sure if she's going to ask you for a slow kiss or she's going to want to hold your hand. It's always up in the air with we don't know. So it's always the first thing I say. It's like, my daughter's autistic. I almost kind of panic a little.
No, that's the advice I'd give any parent or caregiver that asks me is get that information out early and often, and then go overboard, making sure that is communicated, because that's the scary part. Is a lot of times our kids, they're misread, and the behaviors are misinterpreted by people with a lot of authority and a lot of power. And when it goes bad, when that miscommunication happens, when that misinterpretation happens, it's hard to get that genie back in the bottle. And getting it out there, and even if you're on the phone calling for help or 911, let the dispatcher know. Listen, yeah, I'm having a problem, but I want you to know my child is autistic. So that gets that ball rolling, and it gets heard a lot. The next step is what I'm doing now, is making sure that the cop understands what that means.
Yes.
And that's
amazing.
that's what I do
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really can go down a kind of bad I wouldn't say bad track, like I don't want to say police officers but if you don't know the information, then it's assumed something else, right? So I worked as a criminal defense attorney, and I had cases picked up where kids like ours would pick up charges because it escalated to this dangerous situation because they didn't know or they didn't have the information. And then you're looking down the criminal path of possibly some serious consequences, which hopefully you have a good defense attorney that can navigate that for you. But
but
not
that's
always.
traumatic. Yeah,
Yeah.
that whole
Yeah,
process.
not
I
always.
could not
Yeah.
imagine.
The
Yeah,
whole
and
experience. Yeah.
the scariest part is a lot of these behaviors directly mimic what they teach us in the police academy to mean something else.
Yes.
Like eye
Yes.
contact. They teach
Yes.
me in interrogation 101 that if I'm asking you questions and you're not looking in my eyes, you're lying to me.
Yes.
Right. Or you're being evasive, or you're being belligerent, or you have cocaine in the trunk. And there's just a lot of unwritten rules and a lot of assumptions that we walk through life making as just as humans. You know, when you walk into a grocery store, you hold the door for the person behind you. Well, that may not come naturally to other people.
Yeah.
You know, and I try to teach cops, listen, you walk in my house and you have that badge and that gun and that duty belt on, and that is there to send a message. That message is, I'm a person of authority. You have to listen to me. My son won't get that message. To him, that badge is something shiny he might want to play with.
And
Yeah.
something that daddy wore for his whole life. So
Absolutely.
like, hey,
Yeah.
you
So-
must be somebody's
Familiar.
daddy, you
Yeah.
know.
So my 19-year-old son, who's 6 feet tall and 205 pounds, he is not
Yes.
going to react to you the same way that a typical 19-year-old will.
Yes.
And what scares me is that reaction may be interpreted by that officer as disrespectful, rude, evasive, belligerent, disorderly, God forbid, criminal. And
Right.
that's where a lot of this goes bad. And that's
Mhm.
kind of what jars me awake at night. And it drives me to do what I do.
And
Well-
our kids are sensitive to energy too. That's another
Yes.
thing, is like our kids are highly sensitive to energy. So the second a cop goes into this like more authoritarian position, our kids are going to react to that. It'll be a heightened experience for both sides. And then you lose language. You could lose language, like, especially for my son, that would be first to go for sure if it got escalated and, you know, can't answer questions, being evasive and those kind of things. So that is,
Right.
it keeps me up at night too. I'm with you, Jerry. in that.
And cops have this thing, and I'm not bashing them because I am one, and I understand the psychology of it. When we want to get compliance, we give orders and we expect those orders to be followed. And I guess it has to be that way. But when those orders aren't followed, we have no other recourse but to escalate, to talk louder, to drop an F-bomb, right? To talk with more force. And that is, you know very well, that's probably the worst possible thing you can do with our kids, because they're going to read that energy, like you mentioned, and you're going to be exacerbating this scene.
And they're going to throw an F-bomb back at you.
Yeah, and then it gets bad. Yeah.
Or a right hook.
Or run off.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And it's so funny.
Welcome to Planetville.
Hey, you talk about the energy. Eric is upstairs in his bedroom feeling my energy right now. He is so wired to me and my mood that I'm still working on it. I have to learn to mask my emotions around him.
Around
He's
him.
so tied
Even
to
if it
it.
has nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
He could be frustrated that his flight was canceled.
Yeah.
And, you know, has nothing to do with Eric, but he could see he's upset, and then he's immediately like on top of daddy and
Yeah.
just thinking like, what's wrong? And it's like, it's crazy.
Well, and if you think about it, kids, verbal and nonverbal, you know, there's that communication barrier where they're gonna read facial expressions, tones of the tone of voice, and those things are all going awry during situations like this, because everything is going against what they're trying to put out, which is to de-escalate. But with our children, they sense something or they hear something and they pick up on it a lot faster than somebody else picks up on it. So then that escalates our children. So it's kind of like working against the grain, for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know, like, if I ever get pulled over, I'm instinctively nervous. I mean, you'd think I was a drug dealer with 12 pounds of coke in my trunk. I mean, I'm like, oh, when I go through the border, I get exceptionally nervous. I talk fast. I'm like, you know, so I get it. Like, you're already kind of heightened at anything like that, you know?
Listen,
Like for me-
I was a cop for 25 years. I get nervous when a trooper pulls behied me on the highway. Right. If
Yeah.
I'm not immune to it either. That's
Oh
the
my
human
God,
experience.
Jerry, say that again. That is one of the most validating things you have said today.
Well,
Absolutely.
and
That's-
Gary, I know you've talked about
Oh.
Stephon Watts before, and I live in Denver. The Elijah McClain thing happened here, and
Mhm.
I mean, I want to say his mom came out and she was very big that he was not diagnosed with autism, but the way he reacted, it scared me because that's a lot like the way my son would react. This is how they're trained to react to these situations. And it was actually a firefighter, I think, that it all resulted from. But like, this is what they don't know better. And so I'm not defending those people because what ended up happening was horrible. But at the same time, that's where you come in. And that's the great thing about Blue Bridges is like training them in a different way to be like, okay, let's think outside the box, that this might not just mean A, B, or C. Like this might mean Z.
Yeah.
Let's just check that it's not Z before we go to some extreme.
And that's the tightrope I walk, that it's a rough time to be a cop. It's not easy. I am happy I'm out of the world. And I'm walking in a room trying to teach cops about our kids. If that message is received by them as me calling them ignorant, calling them,
judging them.
I mean, it's so fragile. And that's where a lot of the training that's being done out there by non-cops fails, because it's such a tightrope. And my message is, listen, guys, I've been there. I know how challenging this is. I know this is hard.
Yeah.
I have made these mistakes. Trust me, I'm an ally to you. I defend you as best I can. I'm out there screaming from the mountaintops that we're the good guys. We're an honorable profession, and we're there to help. But I have this stuff to teach you, and it's not only for the families. And I love our families deeply. I also love you. And you are exposed to risk and liability here by not understanding this information. And you're making these decisions out there on the road in a split second based on limited information. And you're getting it wrong sometimes because you're misreading that situation. So I can help you. So that's the tightrope I walk, trying to make sure they feel validated. And I'm not just another voice, another angle of society telling them how bad they're failing and how they're bullies and thugs. And that's a very, very tough tightrope to walk.
There's a video that he uses in his training that I went to watch his training a couple months ago, and I hadn't seen the video before. And here I was in the classroom with all the first responders, like literally bawling my eyes out, where there was a boy in a park, and he had a piece of twine or something that he was just walking around spinning, and looking at and whatever. And the police officer went up, thought he was definitely on drugs or drunk or something. And he flat out asked the boy, "What are you doing?" And the boy said, "I'm stimming." And he goes, "What is that? I don't know what that is." Ends up tackling the boy. And then the mother's like running across the park going like, "What, did he do something wrong? I'm sorry. I was just over there." And he's like, "I don't know. He was like doing something." She's like, "Yeah, he was stimming." And he's like, "I don't know what that is." And that like broke me, where I'm like, here, he literally said all the right things.
And he said it, he was verbal in a way my son wouldn't. He wouldn't be able to answer those questions the way this young man did.
She wouldn't either.
And yeah, man, it wrecks you. When you watch that video as a parent, it buckles you. But here's the weird part. I watch it as a cop, and I could see myself making the same mistake that the officer did. Right. So that's the duality of this for me, is I wear two hats, right? I have the cop hat and I have the dad hat. From a dad perspective, it took me 2.5 years to put this video in my program because it guts me every time I watch it.
Oh my God.
I watch it as a cop, and I'm like, I understand what was going on there. I understand how he misinterpreted that. I understand how he made that call. And it's a weird, surreal place to be, having a foot in both of those worlds. But I think that kind of makes the training resonate, is I can express it like that. And it's been a cool process when I see these cops
going off.
They have their tactical gear on and tattoos up and down and shaved heads, and they're sitting there with their arms folded. And I tell our stories, and I watch them kind of
crack.
melt a little bit. And that is what drives me.
And I'll brag for you, because he'll never do it, but I've heard people come up to him, because I've gone to a couple of his trainings, and like they'll say, "I've been in this industry or whatever, a police officer for 30 plus years. This is the best training, hands down, that I've ever been to. I've learned something that I should have known many, many years ago." So it's like, this is what he's trying to do to make sure he can reach as many first responders as possible, so that there can be a little bit more understanding. And yeah, maybe it's not going to like make every bad potential interaction go away, but hopefully it could avoid a lot of them.
Well, that's such a hard profession.
Oh,
so sweet. Yeah, and it's such a hard profession. It's a profession of split decisions. Like your whole job is about making impressions in a quick scenario to keep everyone safe. And so in that sense, like the decisions that are being made are for safety, period. That's it.
And then those decisions are then torn apart by
Right.
people and
Yes.
experts that have the luxury of a pause button and a rewind button.
Yes.
Freeze frame.
Defense attorneys.
Well, and
Yeah,
I was gonna say-
I wasn't going to go there. You go there.
I was
Yes,
gonna say, and
defense
all of the
attorneys.
knowledge
Yes, that is
yeah,
correct.
of what they did or didn't have in their pockets.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
But I mean, I want to thank you so much. I mean, my son's
Yeah.
only 8, but we're just getting to the age with my daughter who's 5. My son doesn't quite understand this yet, but like if they were to be lost or something was to go wrong, you know, you want to say to your kid, like we were told, if you see a police officer, you can go to a police officer. But I hesitate saying that to my son already. And I don't want to hesitate saying that.
Right.
But in my mind, I'm like, well, this is a scary situation. What if they misinterpret him? And maybe now at 8, it's okay if he goes to a police officer. But what if he's 17
Yep.
and he's stimming or talking to himself? He paces back and forth and talks to himself a lot. And I'm like, I mean, before I knew autism, I would think that meant something a lot different. And so
Yeah.
I'm so grateful you're doing this because, man, it's scary.
Yeah, it's
It
amazing.
is scary.
Yeah.
And that fear you just expressed it's almost universal. I hear
all have it.
thousands of that. And here again, I am not immune to it. And I live in the town I worked in. I was second in command of my police department. I had 42 officers that kind of had to do what I say. And trust me, every one of them was trained on my son. And right now, if I needed help with my son, I would hesitate. I would hesitate to call for help right now because I'd be afraid that they would misinterpret it or
Something would go
just make
wrong.
the wrong call.
Yeah.
And
Escalate it instead of de-escalating.
and that kind of drives me that if I feel that apprehension, if I would hesitate, knowing my experiences, and these people are my brothers, and I would go to war with them right now. If I feel that hesitation, I can't imagine what a parent feels that doesn't have those insights or those experiences that I have. And it must be debilitating. It must be just crippling to have that fear of, and it shouldn't be that way. We should feel comfortable calling for help, God forbid, if we ever need it. And I hear that all the time, that parents say, no, I'd rather deal with it myself. It's just, I just feel, my God, I have to be part of the fix. I have to fix that. And, you know,
And I think we have this challenge with autism being out there so much more now, but now people have an idea of what autism is. Like, it's this thing that goes in this box where that might be what it looks like for one person, but not the other. So then it's like, you know, this generalization is being made that, you know, it's like grossly inaccurate. It's almost like more confusing than someone just not knowing at all, because then they're like, oh no, this is not what autism is because it doesn't look like this, you know. It's not just for cops, I mean across the board, you know.
And that's the hardest thing to teach cops. I know cops, right? They want a flow chart. They want a template. If I see this, then I do this, and then I'll do this, and then I'll be okay. And I tell them, listen, this is almost unfair for me as an instructor, because the reality is I could have 2 people sitting with me right now. The person on my left could be an MIT professor, gifted intellectually, drive a Maserati and have a family of 6. And the person on my right can be nonverbal, cannot go out in society without support, 24-hour care. And both of them have an identical diagnosis of autism. And then you have everything in between. So how do I, as an instructor,
and both can shut down in certain situations.
It's almost unfair what we are trying to do here, which is give you a flow chart of how to go very hard. And it's not impossible.
I can tell you, Jerry, that I watched a video that someone just messaged you and asked you if there was this product like an ID card, and suddenly you lost 6 months of life building ID cards for people. If you get that flow chart handled about how to handle the spectrum disorders, I just want one. I want one
billionaire.
big.
Yeah.
I do. I'm the one that does like murals on my walls. I'll paint it big. Get me the flow chart when you make it.
Don't put in bubble letters.
You and I can partner together. We'll be billionaires if we could figure that out.
Yeah, you can do the graphic spray. Sure, I'm good at that. Real quick.
Well, be careful. Be careful. You want to look into my work before my body of work.
Yeah, hold on. One wall we can't speak for, but the rest is fantastic.
It is like a puzzle piece. I mean, like even recently we did a podcast with our kiddos, like interviewing our kiddos, and the way that each one of us spoke to our children is similar, but also different in the
Mm.
way that we would ask the questions, in the way that we would approach them, in the way that they would understand the context of the question. You know, all of that is very, it's different.
But that's the
So,
crazy thing. Even we as parents, we don't have the
Singular.
answers in those moments, right?
yeah.
I don't, I wouldn't know how to
Right.
do a lot of
That's-
these things.
You're not calling the police when you have this stuff dialed in like a flow chart. That's what I'm telling you. Like, as a burning question for Jerry, and this is a little bit my own life and name, but my daughter Celie, I described to you, she's a super Hellcat, right? Our most recent police engagement was as a result of her losing it on a bus. Her little bus that brought her to a level 4 program home. It's like a 25-minute ride. And in it, she threw a fire extinguisher at the driver. I mean, there was like a lot of commotion going on. The aide called the police instead of the bus company. The police officer gets on the bus and Celie begins to kick him in the shins and like go for him, which she said she was going for some stickers because she really knows that everybody's got those in their pocket for her. Anyhow, he dismissed the whole thing because she's 8. And being that, like, Rachel, don't worry about it. I would never press charges on your daughter. I would never allow for this bus aide or the driver to press charges. Your daughter's 8 years old. Fetal alcohol spectrum disorder means that there are parts of her that will not change. There are parts of her that will not progress. So when he writes us off because she's just 8, and I know that soon, if we're lucky, she'll be 28.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, lucky and blessed. Like, then what? And so I wonder if there's words that is there advice that you have for families like ours, like in the moment of just thinking that it's a kid's condition and that by 19 it'll be smooth, and you know what I mean?
Well, we talked about, and that's all of our fear, right? That's real, and it's almost universal. But we talked about it before, that getting the information out quickly and often during that encounter. So you might want to, well, the ID cards you mentioned, having something like that is apparent that she
you make
has,
a t-shirt size ID
and
card.
listen,
I am Celie Flanagan.
yeah, and it's a very personal decision, and I know there's privacy
Yeah.
concerns, and there's a legitimate, valid argument to be made that I don't want my child proclaiming their disability on their body, and that is a valid argument, and I won't push back against it. But I do know, as the cop who has been dispatched to those types of calls, I've never seen a call go worse due to too much information. I've never seen a call go down the tubes because the officer knew too much about the person. And I've seen thousands and thousands of calls go way, way better because the officer had information or was given information about what he was dealing with. But let me say this, and the defense attorney is probably a better person to speak to this. If that ungodly thing happens, that unspeakable, terrifying thing happens where she's 28 and she is arrested for the behavior, okay, whatever, keep your head. Okay, all that is a process. They'll bring her to the police department. She'll be processed with paperwork. You'll be given a court date, and you will have the ability to advocate. It's not like the world ends, right? It's not like unless, of course, you're afraid she's going to be physically hurt. Obviously, that's important. But if she is arrested and it's a misinterpretation, they still have to prove intent, and they still have to. And you'll have your say, whether it's at the police station that night or whether it's in a month and a half in court. You'll have your chance to advocate for her. So the process is just beginning at that point. It's hard for a parent to swallow that. I get that. I would be with my son in jail. I know myself.
I mean, that really is such a beautiful thing to say to a person, though, right? Like, it's okay. It's a process, and we are wizards at processes and paperwork and people misunderstanding us at first. Like, that sort of calms me a skosh just while she's 8. So thank you.
No,
I feel
sure.
like we got to get her a backpack that says I'm autistic. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm about the ID card. Make it hot pink and send her over.
Well, yeah. Well, send me.
I heard you got a laminator.
I'll get it done. I'll get it done for you. Absolutely. No, I think information is important.
Well, I feel like there's so much more to talk about, but I know it's getting late for you guys. I feel bad, but we'd love to have you back. Maybe do a second one. I want to talk more
we need a part 2.
We need a part 2. I took I just want to give a little quick thing before I let you guys go. And we're going to put all the links to all of your things. And by we, not me, because I can barely copy and paste, but the beautiful Jamie Ramos is the we.
Or our new intern, Anna, who works for free.
They both work for free. We owe Jamie a lot of back pay. Your podcast, Respect the STEM. I took a million notes in the beginning and I won't read them all. I'll tell you, I was like fascinated, but a few things really stuck. 1,000 things didn't matter. A million things suddenly did.
Yeah.
And how you were humbled really quickly when it faces your family. And you didn't handle the diagnosis. You became bitter. Me too. And sorry, but get ready. Fuck you, God. We're going to be big. We whistle for Rachel. We got a lot of whistles in here. Don't worry. But all of those things and the level of trauma with the diagnosis, all of those things, processing it, I felt like I was listening to myself talk. So thank you. That was such an amazing opening podcast. Respect the STEM. It's amazing.
And I made my husband listen, and I think it was really great for him to, because like you talked about, not many men talk about this stuff. So I mean, I know your podcast is geared towards police officers and, emergency services, but it was great for my husband because he doesn't get on the blogging or the Facebook.
I wish you understood how much that means to me. Thank you very much for that. And it's still weird for me to hear my words repeated. It's still weird that anybody out there is kind of like has even the first care of what I say, but thank you for that. It means a lot.
I was messaging Jamie. I'm like, oh my gosh, she goes, Isaac's listening to it right now too. So like we were at the same time listening to that first episode. It was amazing. So
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes. Can you
Thank you.
give us a quick rundown of where people can find you, your nonprofit, and if there's anything we can do for your nonprofit as well?
So the nonprofit name is Special Wants, and we have like a regular Facebook page. Special Wants is the name, or we have the group Special Wants, a Bacon and Juiceboxes project, which is kind of where it all started. That we also find hard to find items that special needs families are, looking for their loved one. It's probably grown beyond specifically special needs families at this point, because I think we have 24,000 people in that group. But they've had some amazing connections and finds. Our website is www.specialwants.org. And we try to grant as many holiday wishes for special needs families every holiday season.
Incredible.
So check us out and follow the page.
My wife is way too humble. She disappears from the months of September through December and works 14 hours a day granting these wishes. And it's amazing to watch. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
you guys are a bombshell as a couple. Just putting things out into the world for our families and kids. It's pretty incredible. So
we feel like this journey has brought us to some beautiful places. It's had very challenging moments too, but we've been blessed to be meeting so many people, blessed, as you say, to have your destiny, your purpose in life to find you through Eric and things that we've had to encounter. So it's definitely there's a lot of silver linings as well.
She hasn't kicked me out yet.
25 years. Kind of getting
we haven't gotten there yet. October, 25 years.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. This has been a blast.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes,
thank
you.
Have a
great day, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the table for this episode of the Table for Five No Reservations podcast. Big thank you to all of our supporters. If you would like to become a supporter, please check out the description of this episode, where you will also find episode information, how to sign up for our newsletter, and find links to us individually. Join us next Monday for more, and while you wait, check out our content on Facebook and Instagram. If you are enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you listen. To contact us, you can email us at tablefor5podcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next week. Can't wait to sit with you again.